Joyous living. When we sing that song, my thoughts, and I apologize, my thoughts went to that light fixture that's missing. And I'm going, who would have done that? And I thought, you know what? It's probably somebody who wants to do me a favor so that I don't have to climb up on a ladder. So that made me smile. But then it also made me smile because those of you that remember Tyler Foster loved leading songs that would be associated with December 25th. And he did it because Jacob did not like him at all. And Jacob would get so beside himself. And Tyler would ask him, are they scriptural? And he would have to concede they were scriptural. But it's what we connotate with it. And so that made me smile. It's a lot of things when you look at life that make you smile. And that's one of the things that we have to do. We have to learn to look at those things that make us smile, that give us a life that's triumphant. And so I'm convinced that the scriptures give us keys to know how to do that. This is not an earth-shattering sermon by no stretch of the imagination. It's things we have looked at before in one form or another. And so I want to direct your thoughts back to the book of Ecclesiastes, and specifically into the 12th chapter, as you can see on the overhead. Solomon is getting to the conclusion of really talking about what life is all about. And what he's trying to do is show a balance of vanity is vanity. And then if you look to God, that balances the vanities of life. But he says, remember also your Creator in the days of your youth. Before the evil days come, the years draw near when you will say, I have no delight in them. I don't know about you, but I can read through this and I can look at everything that Solomon talks about and go, I can relate. I can relate. So when you get to a certain age, how can you have joy? Unless you're joy already. It seems to me you should be celebrating. You got a birthday coming up. Okay. Anyways, so remember your Creator in the days of your youth. Remember. Before you say, I have no delight in them. So if you read through this 12th chapter, he's rather dour. He talks about any number of issues of a physical realm where you're just not the person you once were. Nevertheless, you can find joy, you can find happiness, and you can live a life that is triumphant, even in advanced age. You can find that. So go back over into the book of Hebrews. And in Hebrews, we're going to go into the 6th chapter. Look at the very first verse. Because the writer of Hebrews points out the following. Therefore, we've talked about therefore a lot. You know, it is a conclusion and a connection. Therefore, leaving the elementary teaching about the Christ, let us press on to maturity. Some of your translations say perfection or completeness. Not laying again a foundation of repentance from dead works and of faith toward God. We've got to press on. We're not complete. We're not done yet. We're not finished. And we need to press on to be that finished entity. I heard Linda talking to Kevin this morning about various art things that she would like to do, or that I had done, or she had done, or Kevin would like to do. I didn't eavesdrop all that much. But when artwork comes in, it's a process. And in the scriptures, we're talked about as being the clay, and God is the potter. When I get out of the car at home, there's a workbench in the garage, and it talks about this material that Linda has. And it works like clay, but it sets up like cement. And I see that and I'm impressed by it. Oh, I've never worked with it. I am not the sculptor, I am not the artist, but I marvel at what people can do and what people have done. And I realize that God is at work in our lives. And even though I might be a tad bit older than 25, I recognize that God is still working in my life. That as long as there is life, there is work that needs to be done. And that God is going to continue to mold me and shape me until the time for my departure. And therein will I find joy. It would be interesting to see what the finished product is, because I know I'm not finished. When Linda starts a project, I get excited because I want to see what she's going to do, what she's going to create, whether it be jewelry or a painting or a sculpture or one of the mushrooms that she's been making. It's fascinating to me. What's the finished product going to be? Well, that's you and I. And we can have a life that's useful and a life that's triumphant. If you look back at Romans, the 6th chapter and verse 12, Paul writes, "Therefore, do not let sin reign in your mortal body, that you should obey its lusts. And do not go on presenting the members of your body to sin as instrument of righteousness. But present yourselves to God as those alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness to God." In other words, God, here I am. Take me, use me, mold me, shape me. In whatever way you want, I am yours. And once we get to that point, our life takes on a whole different characteristic hue. I am yours. Bend me, mold me, shape me. In the 119th Psalm, the psalmist writes in verse 11, "Thy word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against thee. Blessed art thou, O Lord, teach me thy statutes. With my lips I have told of all the ordinances of thy mouth. I have rejoiced in the way of thy testimonies, as much as in all riches. I will meditate on thy precepts and regard thy ways. And I shall delight in thy statutes. I shall not forget thy word." It's what we take into us. It's who we become. And we haven't really gotten into the keys and opening. But in Hebrews, you find the following: "Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, in everything give thanks." So if I'm going to have a life that is abundant, rich, and full, it starts with obedience to the God of heaven. And if I can learn that, if I can learn the concept of surrendering, I've got it. I'm well on my way. But therein is the hard part, because we don't like to surrender. Not at all. We don't want to surrender. I got an email from a family member yesterday informing of a change in life. And the person said, "You know what? I don't care what you think. You may think this. I don't care. Deal with it. This is what I'm going to do." On one hand, I go, that's pretty bold. And I admire that. But on the other hand, I go, maybe not so much. When we come to God, we've got to be willing to surrender all and not be arrogant and pompous. But God, I know I need work. Use me, make me, mold me, shape me. And that's how you live a triumphant life, a life of absolute victory. And so embrace the pattern for happiness that's outlined in God's word. Embrace it. Accept it. Paul said when he's in a tribunal, he's a prisoner. He says, consequently, King Agrippa, I think myself happy. Some translations do not use the word happy there. They use the word blessed. I am blessed. When I'm blessed, I'm happy. That's who I am, is what Paul's saying. Happy, you can see the definition on the overhead, means fortunate, a feeling of well-being. Do you feel that? Adam and I were watching TV yesterday, and a commercial came on. And I had been being a grump all day, and I was being a grump on purpose because I kind of like being a grump. I figure I'm at a certain age, I can be as big a curmudgeon as I want to be. If nobody's around other than my family, good. They get the curmudgeonly me. And then it dawned on me when lady goes, I don't have to sit here and listen to this. She got up and left the room. I made a comment to Adam, and it was nothing snarky or anything. That wouldn't come from me. But then I saw a commercial, and I waxed philosophic. And I said, you know, Adam, we are really fortunate that we live in this country, that we have food to eat, we have a shelter to cover us. I know many of you women right now are saying, nah, we have air conditioning that cools us. Women over here are fanning like crazy. Women over here, you got your jackets on. Ay. But I told him, I said, we ought to be thankful. I said, this is a great country. Yeah, we got problems. But for the most part, this is a great country. Opportunity abounds. And I was surprised when he looked at me and said, you know, Dad, you're right. You're absolutely right. Well, we're fortunate for more than that. We're fortunate because God gave us life. Absolutely gave us life. We could not have existed had not God created life and the continuation thereof. It's remarkable when you think of it, how man propagates and life is created in utero. It is a miracle, but it is God's creation. And it should be protected and held on to. And God said, let us make man in our image. We are made in the veritable image of God. That's cause for celebration. I mean, I look at this body and I go, yeah. And I realize I've let it go. I've lingered too long over pie and ice cream. And over other things that I shouldn't eat. I realize that. I know tomorrow morning I'm going to get up early and I'm going to drive 30 miles. I'm going to lay on a table and a doctor is going to look through a fluoroscope, stab me with pins, needles, probes, and burn nerves off in my back. And he's going to say, this is only going to hurt for a minute. Okay. But I'm thankful that I'm alive. And that's only going to hurt for seconds. And it'll go to the next one and the next one. But there will be the sweet relief after time. We are so fortunate that we live in this day and this time, and that God provided for us. Provided life. Created in the very image of God. And I look in the mirror and I go, is this what God looks like? And he's not talking about naturally physical realms, but the ability to think, the ability to reason, to know good and evil and so on. But Jesus in his prayer, shortly before going to the cross, made this statement in verse 3 in John 17. And this is eternal life, that they may know thee, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom thou hast sent. We have the chance to know him. And I know there's controversy in the church right now over what death means, and is death really death? But when I look at the scriptures, God promised me life. And I know that in order to get life, I need to die. And I know that all physical things die. But thanks be to God that he has given us hope beyond this life. And we are created in the very image of God. That's wonderful. And if that doesn't give us reason to celebrate life, I don't know what does. Happiness. It's there. You just got to turn the key. Jesus said in John the 8th chapter, in verse 31 beginning, and you shall know the truth. And I like the last part. Here's that word again, and the truth will set you free. I want to be free. I have never been locked up in jail, ever. I have never been handcuffed. I have been locked in a car trunk. And I had people banging on the trunk, making fun of me. And I was so relieved when I was set free. But I can only imagine in a more pronounced way. Freedom. To be able to cry out freedom and share it. That's what we want. The truth's going to make us free. That's triumphant in and of itself. How wonderful that is. That realm of freedom. And we have Christ. Many, many years ago, you were holding a lectureship here at Winnetka. I was preaching over at Lassen Street. And Kilgo called me and said, would you take part in it? I said, glad to. He goes, I want you to preach on the wonderful counselor. Okay. And I went to Isaiah, the 9th chapter, and began looking. And I looked at how much time they allotted me. I called Kilgo and I said, Dennis, come on. I can't do it in this amount of time. Sure you can. And so I said, all right. So I tried to figure out how to put 10 pounds of flour in a 5-pound bag. You can't do it. So I came over and I preached. And I ran over, as I was wont to do. But how do you condense the magnitude of Jesus as your wonderful counselor? You all know I went to school to be a psychologist and a counselor. I'm just a people. That's all I am. But Jesus is the wonderful counselor. And anytime you need the help with anything in life, you need to turn to him first. Come to me, all you are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. Right now, I'm dealing with several people who are members of the church across the United States, and we're working together on counseling. And I keep telling them all the time, all the information I'm giving you is what's in the scriptures. That's it. I'm listening to you. But the advice I'm giving you is from the scriptures. You have that within your hand to turn the key because God has given that to you. Donald was telling me this morning he's bought a new electric car. He goes, I don't like it. I don't like it. And I go, there's too many things on it, isn't there? And he goes, yeah. I know even with our car, and it's not electric. Too many things. I don't know them all. But I want to learn them. There's a lot in the scriptures. A whole lot there. Don't just slough it off. Open it, look at it, read it, understand it. Linda's telling me that all the time with regards to our car. Our owner's manual, I kid you not, is about that thick. And I go, I don't want to read that. Well, then you don't want to get all the benefit out of the car you've got. I just want to go from point A to point B. I want the radio to play and the air conditioner to work and the heater to work. That's all I want. And to be safe. But it talks to me. It's all good. God gave us a wonderful counselor. And here's the beauty part about it. Jason was just talking about it as we were getting ready to serve the Lord's Supper. Jesus came to this earth and he emptied himself into the form of man. And the reason he did that in part is for relatability. He can understand what we're going through. And you go, well, why couldn't he understand? He created us. Yeah. But he didn't go through everything we go through until he came to this earth. And I can realize that there's controversy in the church also about that. Was Jesus really God incarnate? Yes. And there are a lot of people say no. It's why he's such a good counselor. Because of that. Well, flip over with me into the book of Romans. You can see it on the overhead. We're going to go into the 8th chapter and look at verse 24. For in hope we have been saved. But hope that is seen is not hope. For why does one also hope for what he sees? Hope. Hope. We long for that. Hope sure and steadfast, one which enters within the veil. A hope that is an anchor of the soul. We've got all of this within our grasp. And we can live this life triumphantly and magnificently. And it's there for us. Happiness embraces all that God has set forth. I like that passage in 1 Peter, the 4th chapter, and verse 10. As each has received a special gift, employed in serving one another. We know we don't have special, divine, miraculous, spiritual gifts today, but each one of us has a gift. Each one of us has ability, and we can use it in servitude of one another. Bear one another's burdens and thus fulfill the law of God. Bear one another's burdens. I can help you with that. I can help you deal with anything. Might take me a little bit longer than it did 25 years ago, but I can do it. Linda and Janice and I were talking last Sunday, I think it was, about the need to get out and paint the church building again. It's been 20 years, 19 years. And they both turned and looked at me and said, no, 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 you can't do it. And I go, yeah, I can. I just need somebody to get me up on the roof and I can pressure wash the roof again. And then I just need a bag or a net to catch me when I fall. But it's going to be all okay. I can do it. And Janice and Linda, they go, yeah, we can get up under there and spray all it out and get paint all in our hair. We can do it. And I mentioned about Dolores and painting that door there and watching her paint it. We all have things that we can do. If painting's one of them, then we can do that. But there are other things that we can do. Look at James, first chapter, verse 27. This is pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father, to visit orphans and widows in their distress, keep oneself unstained by the world, looking out to those that are distaffed. Being a person like Dorcas was, she looked around to see who she could help. And she tried to help them. She tried to be of the greatest service that she could. Do we know orphans? Probably not. But we do know widows. We do know of others that need help. And we can do it. Austin and Jacob, when they were here, they were balls of energy. It was hard to keep up with them. And I appreciate very much their example, their enthusiasm, their zeal, and their willingness to do whatever. I liked the gleam in their eye when they were doing it. They were happy. And happy were they who they were helping. Joy this morning. Al and I both thanked her for all the work she does with regards to the books. She does an amazing job. We're so thankful. But there's something we can do, and therein we can find a level of happiness in our life. In 1 John, the 5th chapter, John, as he writes therein, touches on the following. Look at verse 3. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments. And his commandments, his commandments are not burdensome. Do you find them burdensome? I just do them now as part of who I am. It's what I do. So somebody needs help, I'm going to call. It's what I've done for 30 plus years, 40 years almost. More than 40 years. Adam's over 40. It's what as my life has become. And if I didn't do it, I would feel terrible. And I'm happy to do it. I rejoice that I have that ability. Paul said, I have kept the faith. I have kept the faith. I know in the future, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness. And not only to me, but to all who have loved his appearing. Now he said, I fought the good fight. I have finished the course. Then he goes into that discussion in the future. But notice what he says, that I'm going to get an award on that day. But not only me, but to all who have loved his appearing. He's talking about assurance of salvation. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. I noticed something this morning. And what that was is we put up the signs on the overhead. And then sometimes we don't have the slide for that particular song. And so Dan or Randy or Jason, whoever's leading, will say, well, it's number such and such in the songbook. And the melody will start. And immediately I'll realize I know this song. And I'll start singing without a songbook. And people will look at me kind of funnily like, what? But there's this mnemonic thing that clicks in my brain. And it is the music. And then the words come. We have an amazing memory. And I'm sure you do the same thing. That there are things tapped inside of you that are triggered by something. Allow that trigger to respond. What's it going to take to trigger in you the level of happiness that God wants you to have? That you can say, I think myself happy. I mean, I don't want to put me up as some paragon of perfection, because I'm not. I try every day to do what Paul did. I think myself happy. So I get up. I got another day of dealing with MS. Okay. The other day, the device office called me. And for the longest time, I haven't had my pacemaker being checked. We had our landline taken out. And so they called me and said, well, we're supposed to be reading you off your pacemaker. Okay. And off your cell phone. Okay. Have you hooked it up? Yeah. Well, we don't get a reading. Oh, does that mean I'm dead? And they didn't know how to take that. And they go, no, sir, you're not dead. Would you please move closer to your device monitor? Okay. So every day I got to deal with something like that. But I think myself happy. I'm not able to do what I used to could. I think myself happy. Last 2 days, I haven't been able to use my hands for a few hours in the morning. Nevertheless, I think myself happy. We all have something. But look at how blessed we are. And we are truly blessed if we have Christ in our life. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life which I now live, I live for Christ. Well, the lesson is yours this afternoon. Again, not earth-shattering, but hopefully encouraging. Lift you up. Give you a little bit more resolve to go another day or two. Because that's what we need. We need to be lifted up. I listen to a lot of music. And a lot of the songs I hear are secular. But I try to pick up something that lifts me up and points me ever forward. You can find it in life if you look. Thanks be to God. Well, the lesson is yours this afternoon. In just a moment or two, Jason's going to lead us in the singing of the concluding song and dismiss us in prayer. But if there's any who might have a spiritual need, we're here. We're ready to assist you, whether it be in regards to obeying the gospel or needs the prayers of the congregation for strength and or encouragement. However we can help. Let us know.